There is a lie being told about quantum physics right now, and it is not coming from skeptics or debunkers or people who dismiss the connection between consciousness and reality. It is coming from the people who claim to champion it. It is dressed in the language of empowerment. It wears the vocabulary of awakening. It quotes real physicists, references real experiments, and arrives at conclusions that sound thrilling and revolutionary. And that is precisely what makes it so dangerous. Because the lie does not contradict the truth. It hollows it out. It takes the most radical discovery in the history of science, the discovery that consciousness and physical reality are not separate, and it flattens that discovery into a technique, a hack, a shortcut. And the moment you accept that flattened version, the moment your brain encodes it as the real thing, you lose access to the actual power it was pointing toward. So before that happens, before your mind finishes rewriting itself around a counterfeit understanding, we need to talk. Not about whether quantum physics is real. It is. Not about whether your inner world shapes your outer world. It does. But about the specific way the truth is being distorted, the mechanism by which your brain is accepting that distortion, and what the undistorted truth actually asks of you, which is something far more uncomfortable and far more powerful than anything the lie is selling. Let me start with the experiment itself, because this is where the distortion begins. In 1927, physicists performed what has become known as the double-slit experiment. You have probably heard of it. A beam of particles, electrons or photons, is fired at a barrier with two narrow slits. On the other side is a detection screen. When no one observes which slit each particle passes through, the particles create an interference pattern on the screen, the kind of pattern you would expect from waves overlapping. Bright bands and dark bands, peaks and troughs. But when a detector is placed at the slits to observe which path each particle takes, the interference pattern disappears. The particles behave like particles. Two bands instead of many. The simple act of measurement changes the outcome. This is not a metaphor. This is not a philosophical thought experiment. This has been replicated thousands of times across nearly a century of physics. It is one of the most confirmed results in the history of science. And it does suggest something genuinely radical. That the act of observation, the act of looking, is not passive. It participates in what it observes. The observer and the observed are entangled in a way classical physics never predicted and still cannot fully explain. Now here is where the lie enters. The lie takes that result and says, therefore you can manifest anything you want just by thinking about it. It says your thoughts literally create particles. It says observation means wishing, intending, visualizing. It says the double-slit experiment proves that reality is a vending machine and your mind is the coin. And this version is everywhere. It is in best-selling books. It is in videos with millions of views. It is in courses that cost hundreds of dollars. And it is wrong. Not because the experiment is wrong. The experiment is extraordinary. But because the lie skips every difficult, specific, important detail about what observation actually means in quantum mechanics, and replaces it with something your ego already wants to believe. Let me show you exactly where the substitution happens, because it is subtle and your brain is wired to miss it. In quantum mechanics, observation does not mean a conscious mind looking at something. This is the single most important distinction the popular narrative erases. When physicists say observation or measurement, They mean an interaction between a quantum system and a macroscopic measuring apparatus. They mean the particle interacts with something, a photon detector, an electromagnetic field, a piece of equipment, in a way that constrains its possible states to a definite outcome. The physicist John Wheeler, who coined the term participatory universe and who genuinely believed consciousness was fundamental to physics, was extremely careful about this. He did not say your thoughts collapse wave functions. He said the universe is a participatory phenomenon, that the distinction between observer and observed breaks down at the quantum level. That is a profound claim. But it is a claim about the nature of reality itself, not about your ability to manifest a parking space. And this is not a minor distinction. This is the hinge on which the entire lie turns. Because when you are told that observation equals your conscious intention, something very specific happens in your brain. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of you that plans and projects and strategizes, lights up. It says, I can use this. I can control this. And the experience of quantum reality, which is actually about the dissolution of the controlling self, gets absorbed into the machinery of control. The ego eats the very insight that was supposed to dissolve it, and you walk away feeling empowered, but you have actually just reinforced the deepest illusion you carry, the illusion that you are a separate agent standing outside reality, manipulating it with your thoughts. This is the quantum lie. Not that consciousness matters. It does. Not that your inner state shapes your experience. It does. The lie is the specific model of how the idea that you are a little self beaming intentions at a mechanical universe and watching it rearrange. That model is not quantum. It is Newtonian. It is the old paradigm wearing new clothes. If this is already shifting something in you, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe so we can keep going deeper into these ideas together. The moment I stopped asking, what am I doing wrong, and started asking, what am I actually transmitting, everything changed. There is something underneath all of it, quietly running the show. I am hosting a free live transmission where I walk you through exactly what that is and how to finally shift it at the root. The link to register is in the description below. Save your seat. The moment you see this, you will understand why you could not see it before. Now, your brain does not reject this lie easily, and there is a precise neurological reason why. Your brain is a prediction machine. This is not a metaphor either. This is the basis of what neuroscientists call predictive processing theory, developed extensively by Carl Friston and others. Your brain does not passively receive reality. It actively generates a model of reality, a set of predictions about what is going to happen next, and then compares incoming sensory data against those predictions. When the data matches the prediction, you experience the world as stable and coherent. When it does not match, you experience surprise, discomfort, what Friston calls prediction error. And your brain hates prediction error. It will do almost anything to minimize it. Here is why this matters for the quantum lie. When someone tells you that your thoughts create reality, that claim does not generate prediction error. It fits seamlessly into the model your brain already runs, because your brain already believes it is the center of the world. Your brain already operates as if it is a separate self generating intentions and watching outcomes. The quantum lie does not challenge your existing model. It confirms it. It gives your brain exactly what it wants, a story in which the self is even more powerful and more central than it already assumed. And because the claim arrives wrapped in the language of science, wrapped in words like quantum and observer and wave function, your brain flags it as credible. It passes through your critical filters not because it is true, but because it is comfortable and well-dressed. The actual truth about quantum mechanics, the undistorted version, does the opposite. It generates massive prediction error. It tells your brain something it does not want to hear. It says you are not separate from what you observe. It says the boundary between you and the world is not real. It says the self that thinks it is doing the observing is itself part of the observed system. And that is not empowering in the way your ego wants. That is terrifying. That is a kind of death. And your brain, which is in the business of keeping you alive and keeping your model of self intact, will fight that truth with everything it has. So the lie wins not because it is more convincing, but because it is less threatening. Your brain accepts it the way water accepts a path downhill. It flows toward the version that requires the least reorganization of its existing model. And the tragedy is that the reorganization, the disruption, the prediction error, that is where the real transformation lives. The comfortable version gives you nothing. The uncomfortable version gives you everything. But you have to be willing to let your current model break. I want to ask you something. When did you first feel that subtle tension between what the popular narrative was telling you about manifestation and what something deeper inside you already knew was true? Drop that moment in the comments. Not to perform understanding, but because naming it makes it real. Let me go deeper into what the undistorted truth actually looks like, because it is more interesting and more useful than the lie, even though it asks more of you. Start with what physicists call superposition. Before measurement, a quantum system does not exist in one definite state. It exists in a superposition of all possible states simultaneously. An electron does not have a position until it is measured. It has a probability distribution, a cloud of potential positions, each with a certain likelihood. This is not because we lack information about where the electron really is. This is not an epistemic gap, a limit of our knowledge. As far as the mathematics and every experiment can tell, the electron genuinely does not have a definite position. It is in all positions at once, weighted by probability. The definiteness only appears at the moment of measurement. Now sit with that for a moment, because your brain is going to try to domesticate it. Your brain is going to say, well, it must be somewhere. We just cannot see it yet. That response is called hidden variable theory, and it was the position Einstein took. He famously said, God does not play dice. He believed there must be some deeper layer of reality where everything is definite and determined, and quantum mechanics is just an incomplete description of that deeper layer. This was a reasonable position. It was also tested. In 1964, the physicist John Bell devised a mathematical inequality, now called Bell's theorem, that could distinguish between a universe with hidden variables and a universe that is genuinely indeterminate at the quantum level. The experiments have been run repeatedly, with increasing precision. The results are unambiguous. There are no hidden variables. The indeterminacy is real. Reality, at its most fundamental level, is not a fixed thing that your mind observes. It is an unresolved field of possibility that becomes specific through interaction. And here is where it gets genuinely strange and genuinely important. The question that quantum mechanics opens is not, how can I use my thoughts to pick which possibility becomes real? The question is, what is the nature of the interaction that resolves possibility into actuality? What is measurement? What is observation? What is the thing that happens at the boundary between the indefinite and the definite? And this is what physicists call the measurement problem. And it has been the central, unsolved question in physics for nearly 100 years. Not because physicists are not smart enough, because the question touches something that physics alone may not be equipped to answer. It touches the nature of experience itself. The physicist Eugene Wigner argued that consciousness must be involved in the collapse of the wave function, because the chain of measurement has to end somewhere, and the only place it ends is in the experience of a conscious observer. The physicist John von Neumann reached a similar conclusion through pure mathematics. But neither of them meant that your personal desire for a new car collapses quantum possibilities in your favor. They meant something far more radical. They meant that consciousness, whatever consciousness is not a product of physical reality. It is a condition of physical reality. It is not something the universe generated after billions of years of evolution. It is something without which the universe does not become definite at all. Do you feel the difference? The lie says you are a powerful creator manipulating reality from outside. The truth says you are not outside. There is no outside. You are the process by which reality becomes real. Not you, the ego. Not you, the personality with preferences and fears and a 5-year plan. You, the awareness. You, the experiencing itself. And that you does not manipulate. It does not intend in the way your prefrontal cortex intends. It participates. It witnesses. It is the space in which possibility becomes actual. This is what David Bohm was pointing toward with his concept of the implicate order. Bohm, who was a protege of Einstein and one of the most rigorous physicists of the 20th century, proposed that the reality we see, the world of separate objects and definite positions and clear boundaries, is what he called the explicate order. It is the unfolded surface of something much deeper. Beneath it lies the implicate order, a domain where everything is enfolded into everything else, where separation does not exist, where the whole is contained in every part. The explicate order, the world you see, is continuously unfolding from this deeper wholeness and then folding back into it. And consciousness, Bohm suggested, is not separate from this process. Consciousness is the implicate order becoming aware of itself through the explicate order. If that sounds abstract, let me make it concrete. Think about a moment when you had a sudden insight, not a thought you constructed step by step, but something that arrived whole, a realization that seemed to come from nowhere and changed how you saw everything. In that moment, you were not manufacturing understanding. You were not assembling it from parts. Something unfolded, something that was already there, already complete, became visible. That is the implicate order surfacing. That is the deeper reality pressing through into your experience. And you did not make it happen by intending hard enough. You made it happen by getting quiet enough, by stopping, by creating a gap in the noise of your habitual thinking. And this is the practical difference between the lie and the truth. The lie tells you to do more, think harder, visualize more vividly, intend more forcefully, repeat your affirmations, script your future. The truth tells you to do less, to stop, to notice, to let the deeper order surface on its own, which it will the moment you stop drowning it out with the noise of a mind that thinks it has to control everything. There is a word for this in the Taoist tradition: Wu Wei. It is usually translated as non-action, but that translation misses the point. Wu Wei is not passivity. It is not sitting on your couch waiting for the universe to deliver your desires. Wu Wei is action that arises from alignment with the deeper order rather than from the ego's agenda. It is what happens when you stop forcing and start flowing. When the musician stops thinking about the notes and the music plays itself. When the athlete stops calculating and the body moves with impossible precision. When the words come and you do not know where they came from, but they are exactly right. This is not mystical fantasy. This is a well-documented psychological state. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi called it flow. And the neuroscience of flow is revealing. In flow states, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of the ego, and the executive self actually decreases in activity. It does not increase. The self gets quieter. The inner narrator goes dim, and performance, creativity, insight, all of them increase. The less the ego does, the more the deeper intelligence can express itself. So the quantum truth, the real one, does not empower your ego. It reveals that your ego is the obstruction, not the enemy, not something to destroy, but the thing that, when it loosens its grip, allows the deeper order to move through you. And this is uncomfortable because your entire life has been organized around strengthening that grip. Every plan, every strategy, every attempt to control outcomes, every visualization board, every scripted affirmation, all of it is the ego trying to be the agent of reality. And quantum mechanics, real quantum mechanics, says the agent is not what you think it is. Tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment where you stopped trying to force an outcome and something better arrived on its own? What did that feel like in your body? Let me show you how this distortion actually operates in your nervous system, because this is not just an intellectual error, it is a somatic one. It lives in your body. When you adopt the quantum lie, when you believe that your conscious intention directly manifests reality, you enter a particular physiological state. Your sympathetic nervous system activates. Your body tenses slightly. Your breathing becomes shallow and more controlled. Because now you are performing. Now you are on stage. Every thought matters. Every negative thought is dangerous. Every moment of doubt threatens to collapse the wrong wave function. You become hypervigilant about your own mind. And hypervigilance is not a state of power. It is a state of anxiety wearing a costume. Notice this in yourself if you have ever practiced this kind of manifestation work. Notice the subtle tension, the monitoring, the way you police your thoughts, afraid that a moment of fear or doubt will undo everything. That is not freedom. That is a new prison. You have taken the most liberating insight in the history of science, that reality is not fixed, that possibility is fundamental, and you have turned it into a new way to be afraid of your own mind. The undistorted truth produces a completely different physiological response. When you genuinely understand that you are not separate from reality, that you are the process, not the controller, something in your nervous system releases. Your parasympathetic system activates. Your breathing deepens. Your shoulders drop. Because there is nothing to perform. There is nothing to get right. You cannot collapse the wrong wave function because you are not standing outside the wave function choosing. You are the wave function. You are the field of possibility itself, experiencing itself from a particular vantage point. And from that place, action still happens, choices still happen, movement still happens, but it happens the way a river moves, not because someone is pushing the water, but because the landscape allows it. This is what the mystics have been saying for thousands of years, long before quantum physics gave it a mathematical framework. In Advaita Vedanta, the ancient Indian philosophical tradition, there is a concept called the witness, the Sakshi. It is the awareness that observes all experience without being changed by it, without being the doer of it. The witness does not choose what to observe. It does not intend outcomes. It simply is. And in that simple being, reality organizes itself. Not because the witness is powerful in the way the ego understands power, but because the witness is what reality is made of. Consciousness is not a flashlight you point at things. Consciousness is the light itself. The things appear within it. And this maps with startling precision onto what quantum mechanics suggests. The observer in the double-slit experiment does not choose which slit the particle goes through. The observer does not intend the particle to land in a particular spot. The observer's presence, the fact of observation itself, is what resolves the indeterminacy. Not the observer's preference, not the observer's desire. The presence, the awareness, the looking. This is the distinction your brain is being trained to miss. And it is being trained to miss it by people who profit from the confusion. Because the truth, the real truth, cannot be sold. You cannot package presence. You cannot create a course on how to be awareness, because you already are awareness. There is nothing to teach. There is only the recognition of what is already the case. And recognition does not have a price tag. It does not require a subscription. It does not come with a module and a workbook. But the lie is endlessly marketable, because the lie creates a gap between where you are and where you want to be, and then sells you the bridge. Think harder. Visualize more. Buy this program. Learn this technique. And the gap never closes, because the gap is the product. If you actually arrived, if you actually recognize that you are already the field, already the awareness, already the process by which reality becomes real, you would stop buying. And the entire industry depends on you not stopping. I want to be careful here because I am not saying that all teachers in this space are fraudulent. Many are sincere. Many have had genuine experiences of expanded awareness and are trying to share what they found. The problem is not bad intentions. The problem is that the insight, in the process of being communicated, gets filtered through the very ego structure it was supposed to dissolve. The teacher has a moment of genuine ego dissolution, a moment of seeing that they are not separate from reality. And then the ego comes back, as it does, and says, "That was amazing. How can I use that?" And the using is the distortion. The insight was about the end of using, and now it is being used. And what gets transmitted is not the insight. It is the ego's version of the insight, which is the lie. So what do you do with this? How do you engage with the real quantum truth without falling into the lie? Let me be specific. First, understand what the double-slit experiment actually demonstrates and what it does not. It demonstrates that at the quantum level, reality is not fixed prior to interaction. It demonstrates that the act of measurement participates in determining outcomes. It does not demonstrate that your personal thoughts control physical reality. It does not demonstrate that visualization produces material results. It does not demonstrate that you can manifest specific outcomes by intending them. The gap between what the experiment shows and what the popular narrative claims is enormous, and your discernment depends on seeing that gap clearly. Second, understand the measurement problem honestly. The measurement problem is unsolved. No one knows exactly what constitutes an observation, or why measurement produces definite outcomes from indefinite possibilities. This is not a weakness of quantum mechanics. It is an invitation. It is the place where physics reaches its edge and something else begins, and that something else may indeed involve consciousness. Wigner thought so. Von Neumann thought so. Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff have proposed specific mechanisms by which quantum processes in neural microtubules might give rise to consciousness. These are serious proposals from serious scientists. But none of them say that your ego's intentions collapse wave functions. They say that consciousness itself, the ground of experience, may be fundamental to the structure of reality. And that is a much bigger and much more humbling claim. Third, notice what happens in your body when you hear the lie versus when you hear the truth. This is your most reliable instrument. When someone tells you that you can manifest anything you want by thinking about it, notice the sensation. There is usually a rush, a feeling of excitement, a tightening, a grasping. That is the ego activating. That is desire dressed as insight. Now notice what happens when you sit with the idea that you are not separate from reality, that you are the field, that there is nothing to get and nowhere to arrive. There is usually a softening, a deepening, sometimes a fear, because the ego senses its own dissolution. But beneath the fear, a quiet, a relief, a sense of something that was always there, finally being acknowledged. That quiet is the truth. The rush is the lie. Your body knows the difference even when your mind does not. If you are feeling that difference in your body right now, there is something deeper I want to share. Have you spent years chasing manifestation, visualizing, affirming, raising your vibration, only to watch the same patterns repeat? Every traditional method assumes the same thing, that you are separate from what you want. That separation was never real. You were chasing a signal you were already broadcasting. Beyond the frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery walks through all 9 frequencies, from the dense transmissions trapping you, through the ascending currents, to the master frequencies where consciousness becomes the field. Every method you tried sent a signal outward. This one tunes the signal you already are. Every day you delay, your nervous system broadcasts the same old signal, and breaking free gets harder. So move on it tonight. The link is in the pinned comment below. Now let us return to the practice that makes this real. Fourth, and this is the practice I want to leave with you. There is something you can do right now that is more honest and more powerful than any visualization or affirmation you have ever tried. It is this. Stop. Right now, wherever you are, stop the forward momentum of your mind. Do not try to create anything. Do not try to manifest anything. Do not try to collapse any wave function. Just notice what is here. Notice the sensation of being aware. not aware of something specific, just aware. There is a quality to awareness itself that exists before any content appears in it, before any thought, before any desire, before any intention. That quality is what the physicists are circling when they talk about the observer. Not the content of observation, the fact of it, the sheer there-ness of experience. Sit with that for a moment. Let your breathing slow. Let your attention drop from your head into your chest, into your belly. Feel the weight of your body. Feel the air entering and leaving. And notice that the awareness that notices all of this is not doing anything. It is not trying. It is not intending. It is simply present. And in that presence, something is already happening. Not because you are making it happen, but because presence is what happening is. This is the quantum truth lived in the body, not as a concept, not as a technique, as a direct experience of what you actually are. And from this place, yes, your life will change. Your circumstances will shift. Not because you visualize them into existence, but because when you stop being a separate self fighting against reality, reality stops fighting back. The resistance dissolves, and what remains is a flow that is more intelligent than anything your planning mind could construct. There is a phenomenon in quantum mechanics called quantum coherence. It refers to a state in which quantum systems are correlated, in phase, moving together as a unified whole rather than as separate, random parts. Coherence is what makes lasers possible. In an ordinary light bulb, photons are emitted randomly, in all directions, at different frequencies. In a laser, photons are coherent. They move together in the same direction, at the same frequency, and the result is a beam of light so focused it can cut through steel. Same photons, same fundamental particles. The difference is coherence. Your life works the same way. When your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, your deepest sense of identity are all moving in different directions. You are an ordinary light bulb. Diffuse, scattered, warm maybe, but unfocused. When they come into alignment, not through force, but through the kind of deep coherence that arises when the ego stops fragmenting your energy, you become a laser. Not because you are trying harder, because you are no longer working against yourself. And here is what the lie misses entirely. You cannot think your way into coherence. You cannot visualize your way into it. You cannot affirm your way into it. Because the thinking, visualizing, and affirming are all activities of the very mind that is creating the incoherence. The ego cannot solve the problem the ego creates. That is like asking the storm to calm itself. What calms the storm is the sky, the vast, unmoving awareness that contains the storm, but is not disturbed by it. And you are that sky. You have always been that sky. You just forgot because the storm is loud and the sky is quiet, and your brain is wired to attend to what is loud. This is what the philosopher Alfred North Whitehead was pointing toward with his process philosophy. Whitehead argued that reality is not made of things. It is made of events, of processes, of becomings. Every moment is a new creative act, a new occasion of experience that takes in the entire past and transforms it into something novel. And consciousness is not a spectator of this process. Consciousness is the process. Each moment of your experience is a quantum of creativity, a tiny act of reality making itself. Not you making reality. Reality making itself through you as you. When you understand this, really understand it, not as a concept, but as a felt sense, the whole question of manifestation dissolves. You stop asking, how can I create what I want, and start asking what is trying to emerge through me. And that shift, that simple inversion, changes everything. Because when you are trying to create what you want, you are operating from lack. You are starting from the premise that reality is insufficient and you need to fix it. And that premise, that vibrational signature of insufficiency, is what you broadcast into the field. And the field, being a mirror, reflects it back. Not because the universe is punishing you, because that is how coherence works. What you are resonates outward, and the world arranges itself to match. But when you ask what is trying to emerge through me, you are operating from fullness. You are starting from the premise that reality is already intelligent, already creative, already moving towards something. And your job is not to direct it, but to get clear enough to let it through. And that clarity, that openness, that willingness to be a channel rather than a controller, that is the real observer effect. That is what the double-slit experiment is whispering, if you have ears to hear it. Not that you should try harder, that you should try less. Not that you should control more, that you should surrender more. Not the surrender of giving up, the surrender of giving over, of letting the deeper order, the implicate order, the quantum field, whatever you want to call the intelligence that organizes reality beneath the surface, express itself through the instrument of your life. And here is the paradox, the beautiful, infuriating paradox that the lie cannot hold. When you stop trying to manifest, what you need appears. When you stop trying to control, things organize themselves. When you stop performing enlightenment, genuine insight arrives. Not always in the form you expected, almost never in the form you expected, but in a form that, when you look back, you recognize as more intelligent and more compassionate than anything you could have designed. This is not magical thinking. This is the lived experience of every contemplative tradition on earth. It is the testimony of every mystic, every sage, every person who has gone deep enough into their own awareness to touch the ground of being. And now it has a mathematical framework. Quantum mechanics does not prove the mystics right in every detail, but it opens a door that materialist science spent 3 centuries trying to keep shut. The door that says consciousness is not an accident. It is not an epiphenomenon. It is not the brain's exhaust fumes. It is the fire. But you have to walk through that door honestly. You have to walk through it without your ego's agenda tucked under your arm. You have to be willing to let the door change you rather than trying to use the door to change your circumstances. And that willingness, that simple, difficult, radical willingness, is the only thing that separates those who understand quantum reality from those who are being sold a cartoon version of it. If something in this shifted you, consider sharing it with someone you know who has been caught in the manifestation loop, someone who has been trying harder and harder to control reality and wondering why it is not working. When you share this kind of understanding, you create a ripple in the field of collective awareness. You reinforce your own recognition of the truth by giving it away, and you open a doorway for someone else to stop performing and start being. That is coherence in action, one awareness reminding another what it already is. So here is what I want you to carry away from this. Not a technique, not a method, not a 5-step process for quantum manifestation. I want you to carry a question. And the question is this: what would my life look like if I stopped trying to control reality and started trusting the intelligence that is already organizing it? Do not answer that question with your mind. Your mind will immediately generate a plan, a strategy, a new way to control by pretending not to control. That is the ego's favorite trick, co-opting surrender into a new form of manipulation. Instead, let the question sit in your body. Let it rest in your chest. Let it live there for days, for weeks, without needing an answer. And watch what happens. Watch what shifts. Watch what doors open that you did not push. Watch what falls away that you were holding too tightly. Watch what arrives that you never thought to ask for. That is the quantum truth in action. Not the lie, not the cartoon, not the marketable version. The real thing. The terrifying, beautiful, liberating real thing, which is that you were never the one in charge. And that is not a loss. That is the greatest relief you will ever feel. Because the one who is in charge, the intelligence that collapses possibility into actuality, the awareness that makes the universe definite, is not something outside you. It is what you are. Not what you think you are. Not your name or your story or your preferences or your plans. What you actually are, beneath all of that. The awareness reading these words right now. The presence that has been here since before you can remember, and will be here after everything you identify with has fallen away. That is the observer. That is what the experiment is pointing toward. And it does not need your help. It does not need your techniques. It does not need your affirmations. It just needs you to stop pretending you are something smaller than it. It needs you to stop hiding in the lie because the truth is too vast. It needs you to let your brain be rewritten, not by the comfortable distortion, but by the uncomfortable reality, which is that you are not a person trying to use quantum physics. You are quantum physics, trying to wake up inside a person. And right now, in this moment, that waking up is happening. Not because I said the right words, not because you found the right video, but because the awareness that you are has been moving toward this recognition your entire life. Every question you have asked, every book you have picked up, every 3 a.m. moment of wondering what is real, all of it has been this awareness, your awareness, circling closer and closer to itself. And the only thing that has ever been in the way is the belief that you need to do something special to arrive. You do not. You are already here. You have always been here. The lie said you needed to get somewhere. The truth says you never left. Sit with that. Not as an idea, as a felt reality. Feel what it is like to stop reaching. Feel what it is like to stop performing. Feel what it is like to simply be the awareness that is already aware, without adding anything to it, without improving it, without directing it. Just this, just here, just now. And from this place, live. Make your choices. Take your actions. Build your life. But do it from the ground of being rather than from the anxiety of becoming. Do it as the field rather than as a fragment. Do it as the sky rather than as the storm. That is what quantum physics actually offers you. Not power over reality, but identity with reality. Not control, but coherence. Not manifestation, but participation in the deepest creative act there is, which is reality knowing itself through the temporary, precious, unrepeatable aperture of your life. If this landed somewhere real in you, if you felt something shift beneath the words, stay with it. Do not rush to the next video. Do not look for the next insight. The insight is here. It is in the silence after the words stop. It is in the space between your thoughts. It is in the breath you are taking right now. Subscribe if you want to continue this exploration together. Leave a comment if something specific broke through, not to perform understanding, but to mark the moment for yourself. And come back. Not because you need more information, but because sometimes the truth needs to be heard more than once before the body believes what the mind already knows. The lie will keep being told. It will keep being packaged and sold and amplified. And your brain will keep being tempted to accept it because it is easier and it is everywhere. But now you know the difference. Now you have felt the difference. And that knowing, that felt sense of what is real versus what is comfortable, is something no one can take from you. It is not a belief. It is not a philosophy. It is the ground you are standing on. It has always been the ground you are standing on. You just needed someone to point down.